Throughout my life, I've grappled with the tension between religion and spirituality. Organized belief systems can so easily devolve into intolerance, hypocrisy, and hatred of those who look, think, or act differently. Ideology in all its forms fractures societies, breeding division and animosity. Yet creation thrives in diversity. God's garden is a vibrant spectrum of colors and forms, each plant and flower enhancing the other in a harmonious beauty that can only be appreciated when seen in its full entirety. At its best, religion provides meaning and purpose to life. It offers solace and sanctuary during life's most challenging moments, times of grief, loss, despair, and seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Religion can unify communities, fostering a spirit of collective goodwill that transcends individual needs. Throughout history, faith-based inspiration has unleashed humanity's most profound creativity in art, music, philosophy, and architecture. The masterpieces of Michelangelo, the compositions of Bach and Beethoven, and the enduring grandeur of centuries-old cathedrals and temples stand as testaments to the power of faith to inspire and elevate. At their core, all major religions share a universal message of love, compassion, kindness, and peace. Yet at its worst, religion has been wielded as a tool for manipulation and abuse. It has perpetuated discrimination, financial exploitation, fraud, and instilled fear and shame in innocent victims, leaving often lifelong scars. Over centuries, countless lives have been lost in wars waged over dogma, with individuals persecuted or executed for deviating from, quote, the true gospel. Such hypocrisy has driven millions to turn away from institutionalized and denominational religion, creating a vacuum often filled by a trash culture of alternate ideologies, political extremism, or addictions to external gratification. The consequences of this disconnection are evident in the growing epidemic of depression and spiritual emptiness. Recent research highlights a significant link between spiritual belief and resilience to depression. Those who believe in a higher power are often better equipped to navigate life's challenges, finding balance and purpose more easily than those disconnected from spiritual practice. Experiential spirituality, unlike externally imposed belief, emerges as a deeply personal knowing. As Carl Gustav Jung famously stated when asked if he believed in God, "I don't believe, I know," he said. This kind of spirituality arises intuitively, often in moments of awe, walking in nature, contemplating a masterpiece, listening to music, or engaging in creative flow. This prompts profound questions. Is religion merely a pathway to spirituality, or is it an end in itself? Are we transitioning into a post-religious era? How can we bridge the divide between organized religion and personal spirituality to cultivate deeper, more authentic connections with the divine?
Through the losses, through the difficulty, there is, and maybe only through this, there is some possibility of dying to who we thought we were, and we will all die soon enough. But through events like you're talking, when your life falls apart, it seems like the worst thing in the world, and it is, but yet through that you found something of incomparable value, didn't you?
Absolutely. I take the analogy from Christianity. You have to go through a kind of crucifixion. And then after experiencing this crucifixion, you have the resurrection. You have an elevation of consciousness.
Well, and William James, the great American psychologist, early 20th century, sometimes thought of as the founder of psychology, he wrote a book called The Varieties of Religious Experience, and he talks about once-born religion and twice-born religions. And once-born is kind of a positivism, where just think the right thoughts. If you're not feeling good, it's your problem because you're not thinking right, don't believe the right things. But twice born, and he includes Christianity and Buddhism in this, say that you have to die. Some parts of you have to die. There's no way around it. You can't go over it. You can't avoid it. And that is this image of the crucifixion and the dark night of the soul. So many people have talked about it. And the problem is when those things start to happen, we think it's wrong.
Hmm.
Well, I shouldn't be here. Let me fix this. Let me back
Yeah.
away. And in Zen practice, we encourage people to stay. People will come to me during retreats. You can meet with the teacher. And so people will come and say, "Oh, I'm just suffering so much. I'm really in pain." And I say, "Well, this is good." And they say, "What do you mean this is good? I want something else." No, this is your life. And if you can stay with it, you will find it is not what you think it is, this
Hmm.
stuff.
Of course, in Buddhism, you speak of transmuting the ego, the concept of ego. And I think that is a very difficult thing to do, being egoless.
Well, and I want to say it's impossible. When I was starting to teach in a bigger way, and my wife and I were traveling and doing workshops, I talked to my Zen teacher and I said, I'm a little concerned that this is about my ego, wanting to be a big famous person. And he laughed and he said, "Of course it's about your ego." He said, "If you didn't do this, it would be about your ego." So this idea that somehow we can do some kind of work and get rid of our ego, there's one way to get rid of your ego for good, but it's underground 6 feet. So how do we work with our ego? A wonderful thing to have an ego. If you don't have an ego, you've got a big problem. Fix lunch today or do what you need to do. So how to use this and be aware of it rather than think somehow it's the problem we have to get rid of.
Let's get to the current situation we're in globally,
Yeah.
where there is a lot of division and the voices of hate seem to become very definitive. Not only in America, but if I look at the recent European elections, the amount of hate and xenophobia going around.
It is, and we have such quick access to it through all kinds of media, and it's kind of bombarding us. And it does seem like the internet has allowed a further separation. It does not seem like this has allowed us to actually be with people who hold different beliefs, but it seems to amplify and people then spend time in their tribe and get more and more upset with the other tribes. And I guess from the Buddhist perspective, the Zen perspective, we talk about the Bodhisattva of compassion, Kanzeon, and she is the embodiment of the part of us that hears the cries of the world. So one, as you were saying before, boundaries are so important. So to live a healthy life in this world, if you're watching the internet or watching TV or the news, very much at all. It's very easy just to get caught up, and then you become a crusader who then wants to defeat the other side. So, how to have boundaries about how much information you take and how you take it in, but then to let your heart break.
Mm.
I think that it is a heartbreaking world, and it seems to be getting worse in spite of, good intentioned people, you and me and other people. But how do we meet this impossible situation?
There seems to be something happening on the collective consciousness globally, where I'm kind of wondering whether we're not regressing into a phase before making a step forward. It happens a lot. It happened a lot in history because if we look at the Renaissance, that was an era of enlightenment where humanity moved forward, and then we had another dark period. So I'm kind of wondering where we are at the moment.
Well, one of the teachings I know about systems is that a system is only able to fundamentally change when it is far from equilibrium. When things are fairly steady and smooth, there's so much inertia holding us as we are. So certainly we are in a time of disequilibrium. And of course, we all know this on a personal level. And even throughout the day, we may have times you feel, okay, yeah, I'm doing pretty well. And then the thoughts come, or then something happens, and then we're in disequilibrium. And then we're fighting against ourselves, or then we're aligned with ourselves. So part of the work for me is to be present where we are. So the goal of meditation is not to be calm. Calmness is a byproduct that sometimes happens, and it's quite lovely. I like it myself. Uh, but life is this S curve, right? And it only flattens out at the end. And one of the things in the Zen tradition, one of the wonderful things is that there's lots of experience about awakening. How do we live? How do we behave? I had a very powerful experience in college and university of awakening to the oneness of the world, that love is around, we lack nothing. But then it was so painful when that went away. And I think many, many people have had these mountaintop experiences. You're walking the Camino and you think, all right, now I get it. Oh, I didn't get it before, but now I've got it. And then you hold on to it. So I'm going to put it in my pocket up here, and then whenever I need it. And of course, it's not a thing like that, is it?
A lot of pilgrims have this Camino blues, and I have had that too. You want to relive that moment, and for weeks after that, you still you still want to keep walking. You still want to relive that moment.
Well, and when people come on retreats with us, we often say at the end of the retreat, don't worry about holding on to anything that you think you learned here. Because if you try to hold on to your experience, it will be painful. The great thing about attachment is you don't have to worry about getting rid of it because you never will. But again, we can become aware of it. And when we become aware of something, it transforms. Not that I transform it or you can, but so when we're aware of attachment, we can then try to get rid of it. Okay, I'm going to get rid of my attachment but that doesn't work so well. But just being with the attachment, there is some light of awareness. One teacher said it's the universal solvent, right? So in these states of clinging and attachment and fear, whatever it is, the instruction in Zen is not to get over it, but to get into it.
I
Not
like
what
that.
you think it
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
yeah, that makes more sense. It's
And
yeah.
my teacher used to say, our miserable karma becomes our wonderful dharma, right? And then the things about myself that I'm really not very happy about are the entryway into something beyond. We can get better at being present.
Death is not an end. I was with so many people as they died to witness, see, sense, feel their spirit leave their body. In fact, I write about in my new book, Everyday Awakening, how quite a number of people after they died within days to a week would come back and see me in the middle of the night to thank me and show up. Spirit, our soul is eternal and never dies. And then also I would share, I learned being with so many people at end of life. I witnessed people that the days before they died coming into their heart, that nothing else mattered but love, and love just permeating a room, their bedroom, and a sense of preciousness of life that they felt into, and just it was almost magical wonderment that they felt into, and just it was almost magical wonderment. And then they would die. And my message again with my book, Everyday Awakening, is you don't have to wait until end of life, or you don't have to wait till you're in a crisis or upheaval. Every one of us can choose right now to feel into this love, this vibrant aliveness, our sense of our deep essence and soul today.
What is the deepest regret people have if they're close to death?
I would say it would come to me in the moment around forgiveness, like if they didn't forgive someone or wronged someone. But I also found majority of people I was with at end of life, and this is in hospice. It's different when you're at a trauma hospital, when death happens very fast and unexpected. But in hospice, most people died at peace. There was a peace they had worked through on some level, forgiveness, letting go of any angst, sending and accepting forgiveness. So there was truly, I would say, a pretty much of a norm, a deeper peace with people as they passed in a hospice setting.
What do you tell people who can't deal with the loss of a loved one?
Yes, when you lose a loved one, it's really hard. It's tough. It's hard. And life is messy, and none of us escape the hardness and messiness of life. What I have learned personally, professionally, is the pathway to healing is feeling your feelings. And I do a lot of speaking. I do speaking on grief and how you walk through grief. And even if it's a death that's not that long ago, the grief is quite heavy. I recommend, can you feel it a little bit? Let a little out, be present with it, but then you can take a break and go see a friend, go to the grocery store, do something, you go for a walk, but then come back. And the more over time that we can tune into, breathe into, name, when we can name what we're feeling, it calms our nervous system.
What you know of people who have passed into the other dimension, what do we know about life after death?
Again, as I said earlier, at the beginning of our conversation, I 100% know, I feel deeply from all the many people and spirits I've seen that death is not an end. Our spirit, our soul is eternal. I think when we die, this is my deep sense that we go through a little bit of a review, like what did I do through my life? What was my life? And maybe have flashbacks and kind of seeing our life. And I do get a strong feeling that we do connect with loved ones who've passed on, or animals, or I'm a huge dog lover. I can't wait to see my dogs who've died. But that's about as far as I'll go. Some people might call it God. Some people might call it energy or true nature or Allah or higher power. I believe it's all okay. I think language is limiting. For me, I name in my book God, higher power, universe, but it's like the more you've been on this path, it's like there aren't even almost words. So connecting with what that feeling inside of you is, then I talk about third practice, grow your trust. How do you trust? How do you listen to how you're being guided? And then coming into your heart, embodying love. And every one of us, you can grow even through some really difficult family of origin experiences. And I've had my share. You can grow love. I think our essence, our soul is love. I think the reason we're here on this earth is to learn to love. all of us, everyday life gives us a lot of examples and a lot of opportunities to feel into the preciousness of our essence, our soul, to grow love, to grow into that oneness of how we're all connected. But it's also a conscious choice and a practice every day. How are you choosing to live?
Ann Swanson teaches meditation to busy people with busy minds. You collaborated with a Harvard researcher on the science of meditation. What does science tell us about what happens to the body and the mind when you meditate?
So when we peer into the brains of people who meditate versus people who don't, we find that people in their 50s, people older who have meditated for many years, tend to have larger brains. They have critical brain areas that are bigger than people that are in their mid 20s. So the areas having to do with focus, memory, cognition, emotional regulation. Immediately when you meditate, you release endorphins, feel-good chemicals, pain relief chemicals. Your biochemistry changes, your neurochemistry changes. 5 minutes of compassion meditation, and the participants reduced their cortisol, their stress hormone, and they reduced their secretory immunoglobulin A, fancy word for SIGA, let's just call it SIGA. And this is an antibody, it's in your immune system, and it basically represents how well you can fight invaders. And that goes up, which we want to see, by multiple times just from a 5-minute meditation. And it lasted for hours all through the day. That immune response that helps you be able to fight diseases that are coming your way. Those participants also said that they felt more energized for meditating. And one thing about walking just naturally, especially in nature. So as you teach, it's better to do it in nature, but if anywhere, even in a city, you're going to focus on the sounds of the birds, the clouds in the sky. It's still going to be very beneficial. But when you're walking, your eyes naturally scan left to right, and they're scanning the environment. And we're used to that kind of input of like, oh, tree, bird, sun, right? So a walk is more the type of pacing that is good for our nervous system.
What I noticed is when I go on a 3-week or 4-week pilgrimage hike is that the first few days are more detoxing, also detoxing the mind from toxic emotions. And then what I'd notice is that nature would come closer. I'd have a bird following me, or a cat, or a dog, or a deer would come real close. I found that really fascinating.
And I
Yeah.
often encourage people to, meditate with your pet. Let your pet sit on your lap or near you. They'll feel the energy. They'll react too in your household. But you're creating like better vibes.
How do you get from you controlling the mind instead of the mind controlling you?
Well, I wouldn't think of it as you controlling the mind, but instead you're befriending the mind. You're accepting and being present with it. If you try to control it, it's going to also be a losing battle. So let's drop the control and come to a place of observing. And first thing to know about meditation is it's not what people think. It is not just stopping your thoughts and focusing on the one thing. So typically meditation is it's focusing in a relaxed way, a general definition. So you're focusing on something. It could be a mantra, a word that you repeat. It could be your breath. It could be your 5 senses as you're doing a walk. It could be a variety of things. Whatever your teacher tells you to focus on, you're focusing on it. But based off of research and the philosophy and just what meditation truly is for both beginners and advanced monks, there's a process. What's happened first is you're going to have that focal point. Then, you may only sustain it for a couple seconds. It may be a minute. That's really great. But it may only be a couple seconds. The next step of this cycle is your mind will wander. It's inevitable. It's human nature. Research shows that our minds wander over 47% of our waking hours. Our minds are just a wandering mind. There's constantly scanning for threats. So you're going to think about, what am I going to eat later today? Right? Where's my next meal coming from? You start evaluating that, or you're going to think about like, is what I said 10 years ago, was that okay? Are they still mad at me? The craziest things will pop in your mind. So your mind will wander to something. Remember, your brain's just trying to protect you. It's scanning for threats. Now, the next thing is the important step is that your brain activity will change in meditation to start to notice, was that important? A specific network picks up that determines, is this important information? Okay, is what I said 10 years ago important right now? No, I'm supposed to be focusing on my breath. Is the smell of smoke important right now? Seems there's a fire in the house. Yes, that's important. Stop meditation, abort mission. Let's get out of here, right? So you're going to determine, is this important or not? And that's an important step. The next step is redirecting it back to the focal point if it's not important. And that requires a specific network activity to go back to that focal point. And we're strengthening those networks in those areas of the brain, the activity there, to help us be able to focus better. So if you feel like, I don't focus well enough, my mind wanders too much, I have a monkey mind, guess what? More reason to meditate. Meditation is boot camp for your focus. You're training your focus so that in meditation, you can be better at focusing on the one thing. You will get better. You'll expand from 2 seconds to 5 seconds of focusing on that thing before the mind wanders. And also in everyday life, you'll be able to focus on your task at work. You'll be able to focus on playing with your kids. You'll be able to focus on the things that are important to you with a greater sense of purpose. Really listen to the sounds of the birds. Pause. Take that powerful pause and do a 1-minute meditation. Take in your senses and just be.
You've been listening to Living to Be with Reino Gevers, a podcast aimed to inspire you in becoming your authentic self.